See, CRPF is the largest armed police force, not only of the country but of the world. It has a long, rich experience of dealing with various situations. If we start right from the integration of states at the time of independence, that time under the guidance of Sardar Patel, in fact it was Sardar Patel who re-Christianed the name of CRPF as Central Reserve Police Force from Crown Representative Police, and we were also given colours. We have the honour of getting colours from Sardar Patel. So we helped as per under his guidance in integration of the states. Then CRPF very nicely tackled the linguistic riots which took place in the southern part of the country, and right from there, in fact in 1965, and we were also deployed in Sardar Post in the run of Kutch in Gujarat, and that is one of the bravest moments of the force when the two companies of CRPF repulsed the full brigade attack of Pakistan. And I would like to say here that we celebrate the valor of our martyrs on 9th of April in memory of that incident 1965 which happened in Run of Kutch. And since then CRPF has been a very integrating force working across the federal grid of the country. We, CRPF, the heroes of CRPF, the Jawans of CRPF, they tackled all the conflicts in northeastern part of the country. Thereafter, they were inducted in Kashmir, J&K. They contributed a lot along with the state police and in collaboration with various other agencies. And the rich history or saga of bravery emerges from that J&K grid. CRPF also joined hands with various other forces when the Punjab militancy came, and there also we proved our mettle. Thereafter, left-wing extremism, this force has been deployed. In fact, about 100 battalions of CRPF are deployed there, and CRPF has gone a long way in mitigating and reducing the level of violence in that area.
In Jammu and Kashmir, you are at the forefront in terms of law and order duties. You're also conducting anti-terror operations there. It's been a year since the Pulwama terror attack where you lost 40 of your brave men. What has changed since then in terms of training, tactics, strategy, equipment?
See, two things are important: the tools and the tactics. And ever since then, we have revisited our tactics, we have improved upon our tactics, we have also revisited the technology, what more options are available. And so tools as well as the tactics have been improved. And number three, which is important in such areas, because it's a multi-agency environment where we function in those conflict grids. So the level of collaboration, the synergy levels between various agencies has also gone up. And I must say that this is a dynamic process. At no point of time we can say that it is perfect, because the adversaries also keep changing their tactics, and accordingly we have to assess ourselves and improve upon our way of doing things, and that's an ongoing process.
So what's your assessment of the security situation there in Jammu and Kashmir now in the aftermath of the abrogation of Article 370?
No, we are fully in control of the situation, and in fact now the efforts are on that it is converted into a civic victory. The developmental processes are on, and I'm quite sure shortly all democratic processes will take over, will be well established, and with the help of the citizens out there who have the faith in the system, and we have the faith in the citizens, through this collaborative mode, a safe and secured environment will be there under which the development will take place, and they will be par with any other area of the country.
In anti-Naxal operations also, the CRPF is playing a leading role. In fact, after you took over as DG CRPF, you went to these Naxal-infested areas to look at things for what they are. According to statistics, there has been a reduction of 40% in incidents of Naxal-related violence in the past 5 years. What would you say is the situation now vis-a-vis the Naxal menace?
In fact, policing is a state subject, and CRPF has got that acumen, a professional expertise in integrating with the state grid, and that way a synergetic outcome has been there. And over a period of time, with the collaborative efforts of all the agencies, the state as well as the central agencies, we have achieved this level of reduction of the violence. But there is much to be done. There are still certain areas where we have to normalize the areas. The conflict levels further to be reduced, and the people have to be brought back to the national mainstream. So we are doing our best in collaboration with the state agencies.
In the aftermath of Naxal attacks, we often hear that SOPs were not followed by the forces. How much is the focus on SOPs during the training?
It is a very dynamic situation. When you say standard operating procedure, the standard operating procedure is only the starting point. Like you start your driving. So there is a SOP of understanding the machine, understanding the basic rules of driving. But then the driving depends, everybody develops his own style of driving. Driving also depends on which highway you are driving. What is the nature of the other population who are driving on the same highway? So it is nothing static. The best judge is the person on the spot. What particular situation was created, what was the dynamic situation, and how the forces responded. It may happen that the first surprise goes to the adversary, but then having said that, how the forces respond. So to say all the time that the SOPs were not exactly followed, it's not. It doesn't lead us to any clarity, because nobody in those areas goes for a casualty. Everybody takes the precaution, but despite that, things happen. And we have to admit that despite of best sanitization, we may get infected at times, but doesn't mean that we have failed. These things happen in these conflict rates, when I also do not say that these things should happen, but they do happen, and we learn lessons from it. And when we come back with greater preparedness, and that is what the CRPF has done.
How much is the emphasis on integration of technology into the force for safety, higher effectiveness and efficiency? For instance, to detect landmines, or for reconnaissance operations, or to pinpoint the location of terrorists who are holed up in such conflict zones?
See, in fact, best of the technologies available, we have inducted those technologies, but the technologies have their own limitations. They are also dependent on certain given factors and certain geographical conditions. We have seen the technologies not succeeding fully. So this is also a question of integration of various technologies. Like when you have the ground level penetration, the technologies which penetrate the ground, but at the same time we have to integrate them with the various surveillances which do through UAVs. We have to integrate them with various intelligence inputs at time. And at times we found that technologies do help, but not all the time, because the adversary also, particularly in Naxal areas, the adversary also studies the technology. So they also follow the system to browbeat the technology. Technology is self-subversive, everybody knows that. So technology has got a limitation, but we have to come back to our intrusion in the human terrain. In fact, I must tell you that in one of the Sammelan, I asked, and I awarded the constable, I asked him what's the best way of detecting an IED. He said the best way is to make friends with the people. And he said that I have tried all technologies, at times technology fails.
Human intelligence is the best technology.
Yes, but then he said that those small boys who have become friends in the village, when we go, then he comes and say, uncle, that side. So that is the best, because technology is not an absolute answer. They do help us, but our inroads into the human terrain, and I heavily rewarded that constable. Yes, that is the answer, because whatever is happening, the adversary is doing, the society is there. So more we become friends with society, the more the society also realizes. In fact, I am a staunch believer of this sentence, that every citizen is a policeman without uniform, and every policeman is a citizen in uniform.
Dr. Maheshwari, the Rapid Action Force, that's a specialized wing of the CRPF that handles riot control and crowd control, was deployed in Northeast Delhi when the violence broke out there. And you have authored a book on communalism, handling with a difference. So what's your assessment of the situation then and now in that particular area?
See, I must make it clear in the beginning that we go in assistance of the local police. And I'm happy to say that RAF, when it went for assistance of the local police, did wonderfully well. Even people tweeted the contribution made by RAF, the way they handled and controlled the situations. And moreover, the humanitarian aspect, the humane aspect of even saving the people, taking them to the safer places, and very tactically, or very in a non-fatal way, using the force, non-lethal ways of using the force, and only when minimum necessary force wherever required. And RAF controlled the situation well, I must say that.
Tell us about how the CRPF reached out to a former Jawan who had a home there and was taken to safety with the help of a neighbor, but his house was plundered and damaged by rioters. Tell us about that.
I must tell you that it is a wonderful force, and the very humane touch everybody has, and we are concerned about our people. Before coming to that, I must tell you that even in the Naxal areas, when the force was going for a patrolling in a village, and they found that some particular house was in distress, every constable contributed 500 rupees and helped that family. Now here, the money which we have given, it out of the welfare funds which comes from the contribution by all the Jawans. We call the Central Welfare Fund. And when we came to know, and when I put it before the personnel of the force, everybody unanimously said, sir, we must help our brother. And that is how we helped him. And I even went to the extent of saying that we have an engineering wing. I said, if the need arises, our engineering wing will go and do the construction part of it.
Well, on the one hand, we see that the CRPF is fighting insurgents, Naxals, even terrorists to some extent. On the other hand, we are seeing that the CRPF is also reaching out to youth in conflict zones and mainstreaming them. Tell us about the Bharat Darshan tours that the CRPF organizes for Kashmiri students, taking them to different parts of the country and familiarizing them with the socio-cultural and religious diversity of the country and the kind of response that you get to such an initiative.
Yes, as I told you earlier, that we are the singular force who have been assigned the task of internal security in the country, and CRPF is doing this very well. During this process, it is essential that we integrate with the society. We also, integrate those areas of the country who have been, what should I say, a bit less integrated with the national mainstream. So such areas, not only J&K, even from LW areas, we have been getting the youth and other people to the important places in the country so that they understand the nation, the various socio-cultural aspect, and the what opportunities lie before them, and how they can also, instead of getting affected by the adversaries and their narratives, they understand what a great country India is, and how they can become a part of this country. So we help them visit and imbibe the good values across, and how various communities are living in integration. I mean, different communities, different cultures, different languages, but still there's a unity in diversity. So we help them to understand that they all belong to a great country. There are huge opportunities. People are there to welcome them, help them, and that is how we wish to reduce the inroads which the adversaries are making into their mind or into their system and trying to take them away from the national mainstream. So we are mitigating, we are reducing those possibilities. So that is how we have the civic action programs, Bharat Darshan programs, all these programs we run. And I mean, though you have not asked, but I would love to add that this force also has 6 women battalions.
Yes, I was coming to that. But how do you incentivize women force, considering their contributions? Because they've been to Liberia under UN peacekeeping missions, and then they've been part of IPFK in Sri Lanka. They're part of Riot and Crowd Control. And you all started in 1986, so with the first ever all-women battalion, and now you have 6 exclusive Mahila battalions.
So let me complete before I come to that. Yeah. Let me complete why I was saying that, because these women warriors, they can easily get into touch with the women of those families. And one woman, even in our system, affects the mind of 5 to 6 people, because everybody comes home, eats together. So this way we have been using the services of women warriors to reach out to the families through the women. And they are able to affect the mindset and the values of the other members of the family. Besides that, CRPF has over a period of time has grown into a gender neutral organization, and we have been, making the working conditions conducive for the women warriors. They are happy to do all the operational tasks, and we found that they can do even much more than what the man is capable of doing. As I said, the inroads they can make into the human terrain, the way they can make the human terrain more friendly, the way they are cut out to perform certain duties where only they can succeed. That there was a daredevil show, yes, and the women in Rajpath were, they had taken that risk, they were performing well, and most important, they feel pride in doing all these tasks. So they are deployed in J&K, they are deployed in Northeast, they are even a part of RAF when they go for controlling the communal situations. So they are everywhere.
You, while speaking to probationers, had compared the role of the CRPF with that of a surgeon. So do you think that what a surgeon is to a patient, the CRPF is to India's internal security architecture?
Okay, now let's understand. We are living in a federalist structure, right? In a federalist structure, the law and order is a state subject. So laws are also applicable to the state, and only when the state gives a permission or they sends a requisition that they need central forces, then central forces go in aid of the. Now, the human terrain belongs to the state. The local police, the civil police, what we call, is in constant touch with the local population. Now, where do they need a surgical intervention? That they decide. I said they are the more like the MDs. They decide where the surgical intervention is and how long it is needed. So we go on their advice, because we are going in their aid, and do the surgical operation as much as required, because he makes the assessments, and like MD, the local police makes an assessment, and once we withdraw, it is the local police who will now, after that surgical operation, see to it that the police victory is converted into a civic victory and a complete peace is arrived at.
That's an interesting analogy, but
and it is the primacy or the primary role of the state police or the civil police. I wanted to explain that, yes, and we have to integrate with the civil police structure of the state.
Now, we see that security agencies the world over are keeping a tab on social media, on the entire cyber world for security purposes. Is the CRPF also doing that to build a more secure nation?
Yes, we have a cyber safe policy. See, when we are talking of cyber safety, it is not only the hardware, it is not only the software, but it is also the way we work. The security habits in the personnel when they are dealing with it. It also means that we also, whatever communication we are making, we have the encryption technologies. Besides creating a firewall in the system, which is a software aspect, we have to also have the encryption methodologies, and we have to change those methodologies from time to time. So these are the various ways available, and even the MHA has got a specialized wing created. They keep advising all the forces, and so we are working in integration with the MHA, and they have the things in place and they keep advising us. So that specialized systems which they have created, and we are integration with that. So it's a cyber safe environment. Insofar as the social media is concerned, social media can be used either way. I mean, there's no debate or further elucidation required on that. But through social media, the positive utilization of social media helps us to outreach very fast. And the way the things are getting radicalized through social media, so we are also able to intervene, send the right narratives. We are able to send the right facts before the citizens, and we are able to negate the wrong narratives being introduced in social media by the adversaries or by those who don't have complete information or have the partial information. So we are trying to use the social media in a very positive way. And as I said, but social media is a tool which may create impacts either way. So we have to be very careful about the semantics, the word we choose, what is the context, because people, once something is sent, who understands something in what context, that also becomes an issue. Because one-to-one interaction is one thing, but interaction on social media, which is highly impersonal in nature. So how a word is construed and all these are the dangers fraught with social media. So we are also conscious about that.
Okay. Now, since we are at the National Police Memorial, here is the Wall of Valor, and there we see hot springs written there, Ladakh, 21st October 1959. Well, the National Police Memorial was unveiled on the 21st of October in 2018, and that was Police Commemoration Day, but it was conceptualized way back, well over 3 decades back in 1984. What does this landmark really mean for a force like yours?
See, these are our heroes, and they are the epitome, or they signify the valor, which is very intrinsic essence of any force. Any fighting force thrives on the valor, thrives on the brave sagas, and they become the ideals before us. So in fact, I must tell you that 9th of April, we say it is a Shauर्ya Divas, as I told you, 1965, when 9th April 1965, when we repulsed the attack of Pakistan Brigade. That is the significance we celebrate. So we are celebrating on 9th of April here, and here we will be celebrating the valor of our martyrs. It's an honor, it's a moment of celebrating the valor. In fact, in Indian culture, the sacrifice of a soldier is not a matter of sorrow. It's a matter of celebration, a valor. If you go into the Indian culture, when the mother used to say, okay, go and show your bravery, don't run away. And if any person went and then she used to say, yes, you have honored my milk, the which I fed you when you were born. So that's an honor to the mother. That is our culture. So we celebrate the valor on 9th of April on this very place.
You know, so that was about policing, but there are other aspects to your life also, Dr. Maheshwari. You have authored more than a dozen books on various facets as far as conflict within societies are concerned, on various dimensions of life. What motivated you to write them? Did you want to share your policing experience to benefit the internal security architecture as a whole? What drove you?
See, I must tell you that every operational situation is a new experience. And even in UP, when I worked in Muradabad, Kanpur, Gorakhpur, so many places where I had a real life experience of a communal violence grid. When I was also posted to Assam and CRPF in Kokrajhar and Bogaigaon, there also we were, fighting against various insurgent groups in that area. I was also IG Kashmir. So all these experiences, in fact, when you discuss out with others, when you sit down and start writing, then only you realize how far they are valid, how far you can rely on them, and then every analysis leads to a wider understanding of the practice which we have been following, the principles. In fact, what you call the SOPs. Writing SOPs administratively is a different ball game, but out of your own experience, when you try to codify, then really you know where do you stand, what more can be done, and it is more for the mutual benefit of everybody. And when we throw open those understanding, because an event is taking place, you may experience it differently, somebody else may experience it differently. And rather I will say that all those people who are operational people must sit down to write their experience. When they write, then only they realize how far it is correct, not correct, and when the others share with their experiences, then it leads to a greater practical knowledge. We go away from theory to more practical side of the things. I mean, in fact, people misunderstand. that if you're writing something, then you are not operational or you're not intellectual. But then this intellectual analysis of the practice, it leads to evidence-based policing, evidence-based operations. So that becomes more, effective. I mean, that helps.
It is practical knowledge, but have you approached subjects other than policing as well? You've penned poems, you've written books in Hindi.
In fact, what happened, my mother contracted cancer. And the last 3 years of her life, she spent with me. So as a caretaker, I learned a lot. And then after I wrote a book on how a caretaker should, treat the cancer patient in the family. And that book became very hit and many people benefited because the role of the caretaker is very important. At that point of time, I felt that yes, more than medicine, how comfortable a caretaker can make the cancer patient who is on a terminal illness. That is very important. The people took it, and those were looking after the cancer patients and their families. They came back and gave me a feedback. That just helped them. So feel good. Okay, whatever you experience, it has helped somebody.
Building on this, you are doing human service as DGCRPF, but you're also associated with voluntary organizations in the field of social service. You're thus taking care of street children, of orphans, of widows, of senior citizens, and more. What is motivating you to do that?
It takes me back to that moment when as a police officer in Lucknow, I went to one of the programs of the street children. Now, one of the street child came and he said, "Saab, main aapko chhu lu? Can I touch you?" I said, "Yes, please." He touched. He felt happy. He asked me, "Can I touch you again?" He felt, I have never seen such a smile on anybody's face. Then I picked him up and he was full of laughter, and I could never see that person could be so happy. When the caretaker came and the caretaker said, I asked him, I have never seen such a smiling face and such a happy child. She said, कि साहब ये जो लड़का है, ये जो कारें रुकती हैं वहाँ पर चौराहे पे, वहाँ जाके शीशा साफ करता है. People just put down their window and they say, दूर हट, तुम गाड़ी गंदा कर रहे हो. In his senses, he is cleaning the car. But what he is listening from others, कि get away, you are dirtying our car. And he said that it has been his dream. He never knows that these bada saab who move in vehicles, whether he can even touch them, whether he can be at par with them. And he said it's the first time you have permitted him to touch you, have picked him up. And one of the gentlemen who had come from abroad, and he was there from one of the UN agencies, he also came attracted by that. There's such a wonderful smile. And then I realized, look, in our society, what are we doing? We are, and such a wonderful thing. And that was the turning. And then I started working for the street children. And with UNICEF, then in the UP Police, we organized programs for educating the cops. That how should they deal with the street children? Because they are exploited by everybody. As a child labor, they are exploited by the Dhaba people. And even when the police comes in contact, that we have a biased opinion against few people, in favor of somebody, without realizing the truth. Okay, even I could have been born in a Jhuggi Jhopli, even you would have been born. We would have been a street child. It's lucky that we are born, we have reached to a stage. Then we must, help others. So that is how that episode affected me. And ever since then, I've been, joining various voluntary organizations. Whosoever comes, and if I can contribute, then I'm open to that, and I do contribute.
You're such a thoughtful police warrior, Dr.
much.
Maheshwari. Thank you so much for speaking to DD India.
Thank you so much. Thank you.